We'll call this order to meeting, this meeting to order. Can I get a roll call, please?
Commissioner Andriola,
Present.
Commissioner Kramer,
Present.
Commissioner Nyberly,
Present.
Commissioner Rawson, Commissioner West,
Here.
Commissioner Pritzos, and Commissioner Reed are also absent. Assistant City Attorney Brandon Zendel,
Here.
City Planner Jim Rundle,
Here.
we have a quorum.
Thank you. Ian, could you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will go to our next item, which is public comment. I will open for public comment. Those wishing to address the Planning Commission shall provide the board clerk with a written request to speak, and when called, shall approach the podium, give his or her name, and will be limited to 3 minutes. Is anyone here requesting to speak? Have anybody for public comment? Okay, going once, going twice. We are closed to public comment. Next item, approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion, please?
Madam Chair, I move to accept the agenda as presented.
Madam Chair, I second that motion.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Can everybody cast your votes, please? Only if you can, because I
would.
can't, I would too.
I can't.
Apparently, we will do this the old-fashioned way. Everybody in favor, say,
Yep, we'll go,
everybody,
we'll do, you wanna do a roll call?
okay.
Or actually, Chair, you can just call. for a vote.
Can everybody in favor say aye? Anybody opposed? We have a unanimous motion. Can I get, next item, approval of the minutes, consideration, discussion, and possible action of the minutes of the Planning Commission study session held on Tuesday, February 14th, 2023, and Planning Commission meeting held on Thursday, February 16th, 2023. Can I get a motion, please?
Madam Chair, I would like to provide a motion to approve the minutes as written.
Can I get a second?
Madam Chair, I'll second.
I have a motion by Commissioner West and a second by Commissioner Nieberline. Any further comments? And we will cast our votes. There we go.
I got kicked out.
Are you got kicked out?
I'm unable to cast my vote.
Go ahead and verbally.
I agree to approve.
We have unanimously approved. Thank you. We are on to our first public hearing item, only public hearing item of the evening. It is PCN 17-0053/PD 23-0001, consideration, discussion, and possible recommendation to City Council for a request to amend a final approved plan for the Stonebrook planned development to increase the maximum number of nozzles permitted at a gas sales and auto service used from 12 to 24 while maintaining the number of fueling stations positions to a maximum of 12 in the GC General Commercial Land Use category within the 610-acre Stonebrook planned development generally located east of Pyramid Way and south of La Posada Drive, Sparks, Nevada, in the NUD New Urban District, Stonebrook Zoning District, for possible action. Good evening, Danny.
Good evening, Chair Kramer, members of the Planning Commission. I'm Danny Ray with the Planning Division, here to present this item to you. Thank you for reading that. I know it was a very long title. I seem to do that a lot.
Danny,
Excuse me?
will you bring the microphone closer to you?
Okay. There we go. All right. So, just as read, this is a amendment to the Stonebrook Plan Development. On this slide, you can see the boundary of the Stonebrook Plan development outlined in red. It is bounded by La Posada Drive to the north and Pyramid Way to the west. The proposed change affects only the gas station and auto service use in the GC or general commercial land use category within that Stonebrook Plan development. So the current handbook limits the number of stations on 6 pumps. Each pump has 2 fueling stations, 1 on each side, and this number is not proposed to change. Typical modern fueling stations have 2 nozzles on each side of a gas pump. This arrangement dispenses 3 different types of fuel, regular and premium from 1 nozzle and diesel from a secondary nozzle. Diesel cannot be dispensed through a nozzle that dispenses gasoline. So the handbook limits the number of fueling nozzles to 12 and pumps to 6. So that's 1 nozzle per each side of a pump for a maximum of 12 or 12 fueling stations. This amendment proposes to change the language to allow up to 24 nozzles for 12 fueling stations on a maximum of 6 pumps. The gas station pumps that dispense both diesel and gasoline were not predominantly used prior to 2006 when the handbook was initially approved, and this amendment addresses pump design changes that were not foreseeable at that time. The requested amendment does not increase the number of allowed fueling stations, nor does it appreciably increase the number of vehicles at a gas station at any given time. As such, there's no anticipated increase in the number of trips or intensity of use generated. So staff did not request a trip generation analysis for this reason. This slide illustrates a typical gas pump with 2 fueling stations, 1 on each side, and a total of 4 nozzles, 2 on each side, this one being diesel, this one being both regular and premium. So with this slide, I'll transition into the required findings. First, PDA relates to consistency with the comprehensive plan and the Truckee Meadows Regional Plan. As proposed, the addition of 12 fueling nozzles promotes the establishment of a non-residential land use base by facilitating the construction of modern and flexible fueling stations in the GC land use category, supporting goals MG1 and MG2. In addition, the proposed change promotes the establishment of services, amenities within Stonebrook Plan development, supporting goals CC1. In addition, the proposed amendment supports the construction of the suburban-type commercial uses, gas sales and auto service, currently permitted in the handbook, and is in conformance with the Tier 2 land use designation of the 2019 Truckee Meadows Regional Plan. For findings PDB and PDH, they relate to consistency with surrounding land uses and the enjoyment of surrounding lands. Proposed modification does not alter where a gas station and auto service use may operate, and the proposed amendment to increase the number of fueling nozzles will not increase the number of fueling stations or pumps, and therefore does not increase the intensity of the gas station and auto services use that may establish in the GC land use category. Therefore, adverse impacts to surrounding uses are not anticipated. For finding PDC, a fiscal impact analysis was not required because proposed modifications do not materially change the type or amount of development permitted by the handbook. And for findings PD, D, E, F, and G, they're concerned with the interests of residents and owners, the public interest, overall reliance on the plan's provisions, and consistency with the Stonebrook development. As proposed, this amendment is intended to support the construction of commercial uses already planned for and allowed within the Stonebrook handbook. In addition, the amendment's not anticipated to adversely affect the impact of interests of residents, owners, or the public because the proposed increase in fueling nozzles does not increase the number of fueling stations or pumps, or appreciably impact the intensity of use or number of trips to the gas sales and auto services use. And finally, Finding PDI indicates the amendment can't confer a private benefit to any one person. As proposed, the changes will allow any interested party to pursue development within Stonebrook in accordance with and as permitted by the handbook within the GC land use category. And for finding PDJ, public notice was given as prescribed by law on March 1st, published in the Reno Gazette Journal and mailed to a total of 1,083 property owners within Stonebrook and within 750 feet of the Stonebrook boundary. As of today, there's been no public comment received by staff.
Thank you, Danny. As this is a public hearing, is there anyone in the public wishing to speak on this item?
Good evening. For the record, Mike Ray of the Christie Corporation here representing the applicant. I think Danny did a great job. This is really more of a housekeeping, simple amendment, so we're here to answer any questions you might have.
Commissioners, any questions? Anyone else? Public? Okay. Commissioners, any questions? Concerns? Okay. Thank you. We will close public comment on this item, and I will ask for a motion.
Madam Chair, I'm ready to make a motion.
Commissioner West?
I move to forward to City Council a recommendation of approval of the request to amend the final approved plan for the Stonebrook Plan Development to increase the maximum number of nozzles permitted at a gas sales and auto service use from 12 to 24, while maintaining the number of fueling stations positions to a maximum of 12 in the GC, General Commercial, Land Use category within the Stonebrook Design Standards and Regulation Handbook based on findings PDA through PDJ and the facts supporting those findings as set forth in the staff report.
Can I get a second?
Madam Chair, I'll second.
I have a motion by Commissioner West, a second by Commissioner Andriola. Any further comment before we vote? Seeing none, please cast your votes. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Danny. We will move on to our general business portion of the agenda. PCN 19-0040/STM 23-0001, consideration, discussion, and possible recommendation of approval to City Council on a tentative map for 156 lot condominium subdivision on a site approximately 13.62 acres in size, generally located at the southeast corner of Five Ridges Parkway and Antelope Ridge Parkway, Sparks, Nevada, APN 536-121-05 in the MF2 Multifamily Residential Zoning District. Good evening, Sienna.
Good evening. Thank you, Chair Kramer, members of the Planning Commission. For the record, Sienna Reed, Planning Manager. As noted before you tonight is a tentative map request for Five Ridges Village 5. On this slide, you can see Village 5 outlined in red. It sits within the greater Five Ridges project site that's outlined in blue. As you'll remember, the Five Ridges project site is subject to a development agreement between the City of Sparks, the property owner, which is QK LLC, and the developer, which is Five Ridges Development Company. That development agreement permits a minimum of 1,200 residential units and a maximum of 1,800 residential units, and was initially approved in 2018 and most recently amended in November of 2020. To date, 5 residential subdivisions within Five Ridges have received tentative approval. And across villages 1A, 1B, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, a total of 1,084 lots have been approved. Village 5 is the 6th and final subdivision within Five Ridges, and therefore the total number of lots, does need to comply with that minimum residential unit standard in the development agreement. Adding the 156 lots that are proposed in Village 5 to the previously approved lots totals 1,240 lots, which complies with that 1,200 residential unit minimum in the agreement. To give you a little bit more detail as it relates to Village 5, this tentative map consists of 156 condominium lots. The project site totals 12.7 acres in size once a previously offered dedication area is removed from the parcel. Lots range in size from 1,463 to 2,217 square feet, and they're surrounded by 6.6 acres of common area. And in terms of the gross density of the project, it is coming in at 12.3 dwelling units per acre, and that complies not only with the MF14 Comprehensive Plan Land Use Designation, but then also the MF2 zoning districts that are applicable to the site. Looking at this slide, you can see the preliminary landscape plan that gives you an overall sense of the subdivision design. As proposed, the lots are arranged to enable 52 triplex buildings. Access to the lots is provided from Capitol Peak Drive, which is here, and that's accessed from Aiden Ridge Way here. In addition, emergency secondary access is provided from the southwest corner of the project site over to Five Ridges Parkway. The internal streets are proposed to be private within this subdivision, and from a roadway design perspective, the local roadway loop that provides general circulation through the subdivision is designed with sidewalks. There's an alley that provides access to these central lots here. That alley is not designed with sidewalks. In addition, the subdivision is designed to meet our MF2 zoning district standards that allow for sites with multiple lots and a common development plan to measure setbacks from the outer boundary of the project site with a requirement for a minimum building separation in between the triplex buildings. On this slide, you can see the preliminary utility plan. It's used to discuss parking in a little bit more detail. So the Sparks Municipal Code requires 156 parking spaces for this subdivision. That's based on a minimum parking requirement of 1 space per dwelling unit. As proposed, the subdivision is anticipated to include 2-bedroom condominium units that will have a 1-car garage and 1 parking space in the driveway for a total of 2 parking spaces. And then there are 3-bedroom condominium units that will have 2-car garages and then 2 parking spaces in the driveway, so for a total of 4. When you add up those garage and driveway parking spaces together, the project will provide 520 total parking spaces, and that's 356 above the minimum required of 156. In addition, as proposed, there are guest parking spaces located throughout the project site. You can see those in the blue and red rectangular areas on this slide. As designed, those guest parking spaces are designed to back into the local roadway, with the exception of the 3 parking spaces that are bound in blue here. And again, those are 3 guest parking spaces. Staff does not support backing into the local roadway. As proposed, the parking areas that are bound in red are located either near intersections or roadway curves, where it is staff's opinion that backing into the local roadway from those guest parking areas would create unsafe roadway conditions. And so before you today for consideration is condition 17, that requires the parking areas bound in red either be removed or reconfigured into parking lots that don't require backing over the local roadway. Staff is aware that the applicant does plan to request the Planning Commission remove this condition, and they will go into that in more detail in their presentation. Moving on this slide, you can see the preliminary house design for the triplex buildings. As proposed, there are 4 architectural styles for 1 triplex model. You can see the urban and prairie styles on this slide. And then you can see the modern and mountain styles on this next slide. All right, so that wraps up the overview of the subdivision. We also have a variety of findings that you're familiar with that the Planning Commission needs to consider in review of a tentative map. So we'll dive into those. And starting off with finding T1, which is conformance with our comprehensive plan. As proposed, the tentative map before you tonight would allow for 156 condominium lots arranged as 52 triplex buildings. Triplexes are commonly classified as missing middle housing that provides homeownership opportunities at lower price points than a traditional detached single-family home. And given that, this triplex housing type does advance policy H2 related to housing diversity. In relation to policy CC8 that encourages neighborhood diversity with varied lot sizes, varied architectural styles, materials, and colors. The proposal does support this policy because there are 4 architectural styles proposed for the one triplex model. And then looking at policy C4, sidewalks are proposed on both sides of the private local roadway in compliance with that policy. And in addition, city services can be provided at acceptable service levels with the improvements that are required in the Five Ridges Development Agreement, complying with policy CF1. Moving on to findings T2 and T7 that each relate to streets. For conformance with the city's street master plan per finding T2, access to Village 5 is provided from Capitol Peak Drive via Aiden Ridgeway. And then in regard to finding T7 that focuses on the impact of the subdivision on our public streets, trip generation for Village 5 is estimated at 1,152 average daily trips, with 55 of those trips in the PM peak hour. These trips were analyzed against the 2017 master traffic study that was prepared for Five Ridges, and they were found to be less than those analyzed in that original 2017 study. However, there are a variety of street improvements that are needed to serve the Five Ridges development that are specified in the development agreement. These include the widening of Highland Ranch Parkway from Pyramid Way to Five Ridges Parkway, as well as improvements to the intersection of Pyramid Way and Highland Ranch Parkway. The DA does require that those improvements be installed either before the 650th certificate of occupancy has been issued or when specific level of service thresholds are exceeded. And in terms of certificates of occupancy, none have been issued yet within Five Ridges, so that threshold has not been exceeded. And as an analysis of the level of service thresholds wasn't provided with this tentative map request, condition 15 does require that that analysis evaluating the level of service thresholds be provided prior to recording a final map to determine if the offsite improvements that are specified in the development agreement will be required with this subdivision. Moving on to finding T3, agencies that regulate environmental impacts did not provide any comments on the request. However, the developer is required to meet local, county, and state requirements that govern environmental impacts. Finding T4 focuses on the availability of water to serve the site. Water service will be provided by the Sun Valley General Improvement District and is estimated at 49.32 acre feet per year. Finding T5 looks at the availability of utilities to serve the site. That includes sewer and storm drain capacity. Here staff estimates that 156 condominium lots will generate 28,080 gallons of sewage per day for treatment at the Truckee Meadows Water Reclamation Facility. And the applicant is required to provide evidence that there's adequate sewer capacity to serve the project prior to final map, as well as a final stormwater and drainage plan that must also be approved prior to recording a final map. On this slide, we have finding T6, looking at the availability of schools, police, transportation, and parks. For schools, Five Ridges Village 5 is zoned for Hall Elementary, Shaw Middle School, and Spanish Springs High School. The Washoe County School District did not provide any comments expressing concern with this request. For police, the Sparks Police Department will provide services to the site, and they expressed no concerns either with the current proposal. And then, as previously discussed, the roadway network improvements needed to accommodate the Five Ridges project are outlined in the development agreement, and they will be installed consistent with the thresholds in that agreement. In regards to parks, there are no public, community, or regional parks planned within the Five Ridges project site. There is, however, a private park that's located immediately to the north of Five Ridges Village 5 that would be available to serve the residents of Five Ridges. Finding T8 addresses floodplain slopes and soils. The lots that are proposed within Village 5 are not located within the 100-year floodplain. For slopes, the grading plans are consistent with the approved conditional use permit for development slopes, hilltops, and ridges that was approved for the Five Ridges project site, and condition 11 does require that all grading and revegetation conditions in that CUP be satisfied prior to recording a final map. For soils, a final geotechnical report is also required at the time of final map. And looking at finding T9, no outside agency responses were received. And then lastly on this slide, finding T10 asks you to consider the availability of fire protection services. Village 5 is located outside of the fire department's 4-minute travel time, and thus the dwelling units are required to be sprinkled unless the units were to become located within that 4-minute travel time due to the construction of a 6th fire station. Finding T11 looks to other impacts that have been identified in staff's analysis. Landscaping, architecture, community amenities were some of those impacts, and condition 12 addresses landscaping with the requirement that a homeowners association or other similar mechanism maintain that landscaping. Condition 22 requires final architectural elevations be approved prior to recording a final map. And condition 20 requires that community amenities and their associated operations be approved prior to final map. And further, on the topic of community amenities, condition 21 does require that those community amenity areas be served by ADA accessible routes. And then finally, finding T12 requires the public be notified of this item. And here the posting of the agenda for the Planning Commission and Council serves as that notice. And the agenda for tonight's meeting was posted on March 10th. So with that, staff is recommending the Planning Commission forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council for this tentative map request. You have a recommendation to the effect on to that effect on this slide, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. We also have other City of Sparks staff here if you have questions of them, and then certainly the applicant will be making a presentation as well.
Thank you, Sienna. Questions? I have a question. The parking spaces.
Yes.
Explain to me why backing into the roadway is not an option when neighborhoods already have that with driveways. Don't quite understand that. So if I could get a little bit more clarification on that.
Janelle Thomas, our senior civil engineer, is going to answer that
Thank
question
you.
for you.
Good evening, Janelle.
Good evening. Janelle Thomas, Senior Civil Engineer for the record. The standard of the practice is that banks of parking stalls such as what are proposed here present a safety hazard to the anticipated backing into right-of-way from the drivers on the road, as well as proximity to in this specific case, the proximity to intersections where there are other conflicts that the travelers are actually focused on. And also they're located on curves. Does that answer your question?
That does answer my question. Thank you. I appreciate that. Any further questions? Is the applicant here?
Also.
Hi, good evening. My name is Eric Casey with Wood Rogers. I'm representing the applicant tonight. And typically, we love working with staff, especially the city of Sparks. Most 99% of the time we come up here, we are in full agreement, especially when we come to this point. And sometimes we have, we're seeing things a little differently. And so this is something that we want to address. Sienna did a really great job of giving you all the details of the development. And so I don't want to go over anything she's already covered. So I'm going to go into the issue with the parking that we would like to have you reconsider when making your motion tonight. So I'll just kind of dive into the reasons why we have the design that we have. This product is a little, it's kind of like a hybrid because we have a multifamily product, but we also have these elements that are traditionally seen in the single-family detached housing. And this is really because there are some elements of the development agreement that we are trying to meet. First of all, we have 156 units proposed here. This is one of the highest density areas in the Five Ridges development. And this is the last tentative map, as Sienna said. And so we are on that bottom edge of the 1,200 minimum units. And so we're proposing a maximum of 156 units so that we have some wiggle room in between the tentative map level and the final map stage. So also we have the 47-foot wide street width is required in the Five Ridges area. And so you can see that the areas that we propose that in are the circulation of the road. The alleyways and the other ones that are off here are a little shrunk down to help meet the type more similar to what you see in this type of product. So the other thing is that this has a lot of multifamily. It's being conditioned as a multifamily development. We have to meet the landscape standards. We have the community amenities that we also have to provide on site. And then we have the enhanced entrance and landscaping standards. And so if you look at a traditional single family, if you take these three units right here, or these three buildings here, for example, relatively, they're about the same size as this traditional single family detached, these three lots. But if you keep in mind, these three lots will have a two-car garage typically, just like each one of these units does, with a driveway that can typically fit two cars. So that's about the same amount of parking spaces. However, you have triple the amount of units in this area that you do right here. And so with single family detached, you have one driveway that comes in, and then you typically have spaces for people to park, for guest parking, maybe one or two spaces in front of each lot. Well, with the way this is designed, the entire building frontage is there. You have three driveways, so there's no places for you to park. So even though the 47-foot wide roads allow on-street parking, there's very few areas for to accommodate actual guest parking. So we are asking that you consider removing condition 17 to go forward. And then, so just looking at what condition 17 allows. So in this graphic, you can see that the parking spaces that are in yellow, they add up to about 515 in between the garage and the driveway. So this is, I'm not highlighting the garage spaces, but this is tandem parking. But condition 17 would allow 515 spaces to back out onto the street or the right-of-way. And then we have 26 on-street parking. If you look at where you can park because of the driveway returns, then you'll see that you can only fit 26, and those are indicated in green here. And then we have the red stalls that are not allowed under condition 17, and I need to include this one as well. And so you're allowing 515 driveways to back out, and the condition 17 is really only disallowing 24 of those. Another thing to consider is Sparks Code does not prohibit backing out onto public right-of-way, or this is private right-of-way, and it doesn't prohibit any type of parking to back into right-of-way. So the other issue that we have is that the street elements and this compact nature of this development, you don't have any cut-through traffic. There's only one entrance in here. You don't have people that are going to be speeding through trying to get to another neighborhood, just cutting through. Typically, anybody that's coming here is either a resident or they're a guest. And then the turns and as well as the intersections, right? They reduce the amount of speed, and this helps reduce the volume because of the nature of the design. A major reason why we also are including this parking is because this has been done before. This is the third time that this product has come to the Reno Sparks area. And so this has already been built. And we understand that 156 parking spaces is the minimum requirement by City of Sparks code. However, code allows us to design based on the end user. And that is going to be the residents who have people here who your garages do fill up. You're not going to be able to park there. Sometimes you know your garage is filled, sometimes it's not. You have people coming for repairs. You have guests coming over as well. And so this is a request by the other developments that have already gone through this process. And I just want to show and highlight Esplanade, and this is in the city of Reno. And this is just to give you an idea of what this product looks like when it's developed. So you can see that the entire street, the entire house frontage, it will be driveway. So there won't be any area for you to park on the street in front of there. This is not the 47-foot wide. However, you can see how this will feel if you're going down here. There is cars parked on every area, and so you're always going to be anticipating any car backing out. Again, this is the same thing we are proposing here. They have on-street parking, so you can see on-street parking, guest parking in the stalls, and then the driveway parking. Again, this was taken at like 10 o'clock on a weekday, and you can see a lot of the parking is full, and so this isn't when most people are even home. So just to summarize, we agree with staff's conclusions with the exception of condition 17, and we ask that you consider this and removing condition 17 when you make your decision. So thank you. I'm happy to answer any other questions you may have.
Thank you. Questions?
I have a question.
Absolutely, Commissioner Nieberley.
Do you have any plans for any traffic calming measures on the streets in this division?
I don't believe that we do at the moment.
We can certainly do that, yeah. But we don't, I mean,
You don't have any.
at the moment.
Questions? Great question. As a follow-up to that, is there, or just, I guess maybe it's more of a statement type question, is there an opportunity not only to put the traffic calming devices, but signage along the roadway, flashing lights, whatever? My issue with the corners is this is multifamily, and family means kids, and there's going to be kids running around in the street, whether we like it or not, or whether you want your kid to be running around in the street. They're going to be riding their bikes, they're going to be playing ball, they're going to be doing whatever. And your comment that there's not going to be anybody speeding through that neighborhood, I tend to disagree. It doesn't matter where you are, where you live. Somebody is going to be speeding through there to either get in or get out. They're late for dinner, they're late for an appointment, so they're going to be beating feet to get out of the neighborhood, and they're not going to see that little kid that runs out trying to get his ball or whatever. And I have an issue with the ones that are more strategically placed at the corners specifically. I don't like that because people aren't going to look. People are gonna be backing out, and next thing you know, there's gonna be an incident there. And hopefully there never is, and I would pray that there never is. But taking that chance, that's a chance I don't know that I would want to make. So I think that traffic calming devices, signage, flashing lights, those kinds of things have been done before. And this is a relatively smaller neighborhood. So those are my comments. Any other comments by commissioners? Commissioner West?
I have comment. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at these parking spaces, with the exception of, there's only one of those parking areas to me that there's right turn right around the corner, and then there's the parking spaces. It's kind of in the top part of the plan. Not that one, but the next one. Yeah, that. The other ones, I mean, I'm having a hard time seeing how it's any different than having those driveways. So that's my opinion.
Comment as well.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I'm wrestling with the difference of the distance of the existing driveways with the same distance as where, excluding the curve point, but I just don't see the difference, and maybe I'm not sophisticated enough
So
to
this,
see it in terms of keeping them there is my point. My point is on the distance between one row of houses and those driveways and the ones that are directly across the street is the same appearance of width as it is, for instance, it's hard, I want to point. I need a pointer. To the point of where it's not on a curve is the same distance in terms of if there was a home there or a unit there, there would be a driveway there right across from the driveway that's already there. So I'm wrestling with that piece of it. I'm certainly not discounting the curve piece and the mitigation factors that have already been brought up. But if in fact those were put into place, would that satisfy staff? And
Chair,
so, I
Chair, could we
guess-
bring up staff for some,
Can-
on this?
Janelle?
Thank you. Janelle Thomas again for the record, Senior Civil Engineer. So I just wanted to bring up a few more items just for your thoughts. The applicant has brought up that there are other developments within the city of Sparks. We did investigate those particular developments that were approved in the late 90s, early 2000s. The right-of-way widths on those particular products and those particular subdivisions were quite narrow, anywhere between 30 and 35 feet in width, no parking allowed on the streets whatsoever. They also, several of them have speed humps within the subdivisions. So again, engineering techniques and design standards do change over time, and we do learn from mistakes of the past. We are trying to protect the safety of the traveling visitor or resident in this neighborhood in order to eliminate this type of parking. As I mentioned before, the curve location is definitely a concern because it is a driver anticipation issue. Typically, the drivers will anticipate somebody backing out from the front of a home. These parking pods, as I'm referring to them, are located in places where there are not homes fronting that street in that particular location. Another item that I would like to bring up is that there is capacity for parallel parking along 2 of the streets in significant areas. I estimated it that there are a minimum of 32 spaces available with parallel parking without the parking pods. Additionally, we are looking at speeds in this neighborhood. Again, we are not looking at a very narrow right-of-way. This is a 47-foot right-of-way width with parking allowed on both sides. It is anticipated that the speed limit will be 25 miles per hour on a local street, such as this. And let's see. The last point I think that I would like to make is that we are not eliminating the ability of the applicant to provide some form of parking areas. We just want them to meet our code as it's written, which would require the construction of a parking lot in which vehicles could enter in a front-facing manner and exit in a front-facing manner. And so I'll leave it at that, and hopefully I haven't muddled the water too much for you.
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Go ahead, Commissioner West.
So Janelle, you said, okay, I'm looking at it, so if these parking pods were removed, and then now we have parking available on the street in those same locations, what did you say the difference was between the parking pod and the spaces that you could pick up in the street? Because the way I'm looking at it, if those are gone, then now you've got curb line where cars could
Where
park.
parallel parking could
Yes.
occur along those streets. And those are street frontages that don't have houses along them that have driveways fronting them. And so what I did is I calculated the longitudinal distance along both the eastern roadway and the western roadway, in which 24-foot average parking space for a parallel parking could occur, and I calculated that there were a minimum of 32 spaces available.
32 spaces total parked in the street versus how many in the street right now?
So,
I'm not sure.
I
I didn't do that. I didn't do that comparison, I'm sorry.
we looked at that to see what the net is between this, the pocket parking and what that opens up. So, right, you would open up additional, say down here, you would open up additional 3, but you get 4 with that. There are areas, especially the way this operates, where you're not allowed to park because you have trash service and everything like that. So these areas right here where it looks like you can fit a car,
Right.
you would actually be most likely red curbed because trash service and everything needs to come and pick up the trash. And so there would not be allowed any parking there. So if you remove, we looked at it as if you remove the stalls and then you put parking, parallel parking in that area, with the stalls, you would gain 14 additional stalls. So there is more parking with what we are proposing.
Okay. But you more than meet the required parking right now. This is more from a convenience perspective to those that are living there, right, to have the additional parking?
Yeah, and that's trying to meet the demand of that and trying not to have parking overflow into the other villages and stuff.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, may I just ask for another point of
Absolutely.
clarification?
Absolutely.
So the net that you just said is a loss of 14 if the parallel is incorporated, is that how I understood it?
If condition 17
Remained
it
intact?
remained, we would lose 14, yeah.
But you would lose 14, and then you have the option of putting in parallel. So you would lose 14 the way it's designed right now.
Just between the two,
Between
yeah,
the two.
yeah, we'd come out
So
with,
it's a net loss of 14.
yes, correct.
Okay, just wanted to make sure I got
Yeah.
that correct.
Yes.
Go ahead, Janelle.
Yeah. Janelle Thomas, may I make just one comment that was shared with me, is that ultimately, fire hydrant replacement will need to be considered along these streets. And so that is just something additional to throw into the mix, that we will probably determine those locations during the final map stage, but it's also another consideration
So
that
question-
goes into the design that could take away a parking space.
Okay, yeah, that answers my question. I didn't even need to ask that. Any further questions? Comments? Discussion? I think I'm having a little bit of a problem with the back out. I'm just for safety concerns, I tend to agree with staff. I think there's another option. And you guys are the engineers, I am not. But looking at this, there's got to be a different way, or you can find a parking lot, or you can make a parking lot, or I don't know. I'm not a developer. I don't do this, but there seems to be common area here within this subdivision that maybe could be utilized for guest parking, and I realize guest parking is an issue. I just don't like the back out around the corner, and the proximity to corners and kids and all of that is just, it gives me pause for concern. So those are my opinions. Anything else?
Yes, I have a
Go ahead.
comment.
Go ahead.
To me, I mean, what we're faced with is looking at, the overall tentative map as a whole. And whereas I don't have a big issue, major issue enough to say that if item 17, condition 17 was taken out of it, I would have no problem voting in favor of that. However, what I'm afraid of is if I were to make that motion, likelihood is that it wouldn't get approved at all, this tentative map. So my recommendation perhaps is, that the developer and the city, maybe work together a little more, and perhaps as the Chairman Kramer had brought up, maybe there's some other options with the signage and things like that. But to me, it's either we can offer up a tentative map approval with all the conditions, or it doesn't probably go anywhere for a while. So either way, there's probably going to be some continued discussion between the developer and the staff. That's kind of a comment, not necessarily a question, but.
If I can, just kind of address some of those things about parking. We really looked into the common areas and where we can do it, and we really can't do it without losing lots. And there's a lot of constraints on these common areas. We have slopes that are along the pretty much the parameter of the development, and then we also have those community amenities that we need to, because this is a multifamily development, we have to include 6 amenities, recreation amenities. And so there isn't too much areas that we can include a traditional parking lot. I think we are open to looking into some type of traffic calming, if that can be addressed. And then I also have the actual builder here who'd like to say some words if you guys don't mind.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Go ahead.
Good evening, Commissioners. Appreciate the time. My name's Kenneth Hendricks. I am the owner, me and my wife are the owners of KDH Builders and Genuine Communities. I'm here in short sleeve stay in defiance of 3 months of lousy weather. However, I digress to the issues that we're dealing with parking. We have built this project 5 different times and nearly 1,000 units. And the number one problem that we have is parking. I didn't think you would ever guess, I bet you didn't ever guess that a builder would be here in front of you saying, hey, I want more parking, that's what's required. But just think for a second, if you're along the eastern boundary of this project and you have a teenage driver and she comes home and all the paved spaces are full, where does she park? She has to drive clear around the other side of the property and park. What I have learned about this product is no one parks in their garage, everybody parks in their driveways. And so you eliminate 50% of your parking by just not parking in your garages. And it's just customary to this type of buyer and this owner. And so when you have a guest that comes over, your parking spaces are full within your driveways, and the only places to park are in the guest locations. So we try to maximize as much parking as we can, because the feedback that we get back, because we create the HOAs get, the homeowners get mad with the HOAs, and the HOAs come back to us, and then it eventually comes back to the city. All we're trying to do is trying to figure out how to mitigate those problems in the very end. We certainly want a safe community. We're certainly capable of putting in some traffic humps. We've done some stuff in Washoe County for traffic humps that work really well. We're even willing to go to a 15-mile-an-hour speed limit. But we want to be able to max it. 14 spaces is a lot of spaces, especially when you're looking along that eastern boundary. Anyways, I'm here for questions if anybody has any for me.
Thank you. Questions? Okay. Any more discussion? Commissioners? So my question to you, Mr. Sendall and Mr. Rundles, is if a motion were made to approve this and to accept condition 17, could there be a modification to that motion that requires that this have calming devices within that community and the speed limit be set? Is that appropriate for us or not? That's just throwing that out there.
Well, the planning commission has the purview to add additional conditions that they see fit. One of my concerns about requesting a condition on the speed limit is that it is private roads and it wouldn't necessarily be governed by City of Sparks Police Department.
Understood? Okay. All right. I need a motion then, folks. Who's willing to take that on?
Someone's got to do it. I'll do it.
Okay, Commissioner Andriola.
I mean, I'm struggling with this one. Okay. I move to forward a recommendation of approval to City Council for the tentative map requested STM 23-0001 associated with PCN 19-0040, adopting findings T1 through T12 and the facts supporting these findings as set forth in the staff report and subject to conditions of approval 1 through 23.
Can I get a second? Okay, so what do I do?
If there's no second, the motion fails, so you can ask for a new motion.
Motion fails. I am so sorry.
Madam Chairwoman, I'd like to make a motion.
Yes, sir.
I move to forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council for the tentative map request STM 23-0001 associated with PCN 19-0040, adopting findings T1 through T12 and the facts supporting these findings as set forth in the staff report and subject to the conditions of approval 1 through 23. Specifically, condition 17 can be waived in the event that the developer can provide acceptable traffic calming methods to be utilized within this. Will that fly?
You can make the motion.
In a second.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Nieberline with a condition to come up with acceptable traffic calming, and a second by Commissioner West. Any further? Yes,
Just-
sir.
just-
Yes, sirs.
Just to clarify, the motion was that condition 17 could be waived if sufficient traffic calming measures were developed to the approval of staff? Is that, or?
Yes, sir, that is my intention.
Okay.
Chair,
Commissioner Rundles.
my
Or
concern.
Mr. Rundles.
Yes.
I just
I've
elevated
been
you.
promoted, yes. I can make motions. Chair, my concern with that is it's, to an extent, in my opinion, a relative direction to staff that puts staff in a difficult position on what is acceptable. Staff has presented to you tonight that they don't believe this is acceptable to do this. They've provided rationale as to why they believe it's unsafe. And so it's a difficult situation to tell us to change our professional opinion on what has been presented for something acceptable. So that's my concern with that direction.
Thank you, Mr. Rundles. Okay. We've heard from staff, we've heard from developer, we've heard from their representative, we've talked.
Do you have a motion and a second on the floor?
We have a motion and a second on the floor. Are we ready to vote?
I'd like
I
a
believe
discussion, please.
Discussion.
I am struggling with this, and it sounds like we all are struggling. I am going to not vote in favor of the motion that was just proposed based on the fact that there is information that we don't have, and we are putting staff in a precarious situation, which is the struggle. So I will be not supporting this motion when the Madam Chair calls for the vote.
Any other discussion? I am in agreement with Commissioner Andriola. I am really struggling with this, and in my heart, I can't see approving this. So, with that said, cast your votes, folks.
Chair, they are typing up the
Got it.
motion.
Absolutely.
Yes, that looks correct.
If I may, if it ties, does that go to city council, does it advance to city council, or?
Chair, are you acknowledging you called someone up from the public?
Maybe we could ask for clarification.
Yes, ask for clarification.
I mean, you have a
We have-
motion
we
and a
have a
second.
Motion and I have a second,
On the table, and you're calling for a vote.
and I have called for the vote.
You calling for the vote now?
I'm calling for the vote.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, sir.
I think the client would recommend, or would prefer that we get the approval with condition 17 if it's not gonna. Please keep that.
The first vote, the
First
first
vote.
motion didn't
First vote.
fail.
It failed. So the second motion is in place. And the second motion, now we have a 2-2 tie.
So that motion fails.
That motion
Correct.
fails as well.
So we could ask for a new motion. It could.
Let's ask for a new
we could
motion.
break the deadlock.
I would be happy to.
So further discussion from the applicant. What is your request or your ask of us?
We would like to go forward with an approval. If that does include condition 17, then so be it.
Thank you. All right, now, can I get a motion on the original motion?
I'll make the motion on the original motion
Is that correct,
that I
Mr. Sendall?
stated, and I'm happy to read it again if you'd
Any
like me
motion
to.
can be made right now.
All right.
We have two failed motions.
Here we
Any
go.
motion can be made.
Okay. Would you, for the record, like me to read the motion
Yes,
that I'm
please.
making?
Please.
Here we go. I move to forward a recommendation of approval to City Council for the tentative map request STM 23-0001 associated with PCN 19-0040, adopting findings T1 through T12 and the facts supporting these findings set forth in the staff report and subject to conditions of approval 1 through 23.
May I have a second?
Madam Chair, I will second that motion.
I have a motion by Commissioner Andriola, a second by Commissioner West. Any further discussion before we vote? Seeing none, please cast your vote, or we gotta wait till they get caught up now.
And Chair, that, believe it or not, the computer froze on them again.
What?
Will you just call for a
Let's call, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Andriola,
Aye.
Commissioner Kramer,
Aye.
Commissioner Neverly,
Aye.
Commissioner West,
Aye.
We have unanimous pass. Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate it. Thank you, staff. We are on to our next item, 8.2, consideration, discussion, and possible recommendation to the mayor of planning commissioners to serve as first, second, third, and fourth alternates to the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Commission effective immediately from the following pool of applicants listed in alphabetical order: Clara Andriola, Carl Nieberlein, Evan Prisotz, and Mike Rawson. The open alternate position is due to the regular term appointment of Commissioner Kramer, myself, as a regional planning commissioner. So, as we discussed at the at a study session, Commissioner Andriola said, I'll take one. Commissioner Nieberlein said, I'll take two. Commissioner Rawson said he'll take three. And since Commissioner Pritzos is not here, he gets four. So can I get a motion?
I was just going to ask if that was a motion or if you're asking.
No, can I make the motion? Since these guys are all, Commissioner West, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, I will
Okay.
make that motion. I move to recommend Commissioner Andriola to serve on the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Commission as first alternate, effective immediately. I move to recommend Commissioner Nieberlein to serve on the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Commission as second alternate, effective immediately. I move to recommend Commissioner Rawson to serve on the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Commission as third alternate, effective immediately. I move to recommend Commissioner Pritzos to serve on the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Commission as fourth alternate, effective immediately.
Can I get a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner West and a second by Commissioner Nieberlein. Can I get a vote, please? And the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. We are on to 8.3, consideration, discussion, and possible removal from the table the item to amend the Sparks Planning Commission Rules of Procedures. Mr. Sendall.
I believe at this point, we're just requesting a motion to remove the item
All
from
right.
the table, and I'll discuss the rules of procedure on the next item.
Can I get a motion, please?
Madam Chair, I move to remove from the table, the Sparks Planning Commission Rules of Procedure that was presented and tabled at the Thursday, January 19th, 2023 Planning Commission meeting.
Can I get a second? I have a motion by Commissioner Andriola, a second by Commissioner West. Any discussion? Okay. Seeing none, let us vote. Motion passes unanimously. On to 8.4. Consideration, discussion, and possible amendment or approval of the Sparks Planning Commission Rules of Procedure. Mr. Sendall.
Chair Kramer, Brandon Sendall, Assistant City Attorney. I believe you will all remember this was before the Planning Commission in our January meeting. At that point, staff wasn't recommending any changes. Chair Kramer, you had the idea to beef up some of the public comment language, so we tabled it. Looking into it, I believe we both think that the existing language addresses it. It allows the chair to allow a public commenter to take more than 3 minutes in the chair's discretion, and our rules actually specifically say one of the factors to consider is whether that person is speaking on behalf of a group. So I do believe the rules of procedure right now allow the chair the discretion that Chair Kramer was looking to cement into our rules of procedure. So it's before the Planning Commission again. And with our review, we are again recommending no changes, but if any other planning commissioners or Chair Kramer, if anybody has any other recommendations, we can consider those.
Thank you. Any questions, comments, concerns? Okay, seeing none, can I get a motion, please? Commissioner West.
I move to approve the Sparks Planning Commission Rules of Procedure with no amendments as proposed by city staff.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Commissioner West, a second by Commissioner Andriola. And any further discussion? Cast your vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Sendall. Item 8.5, consideration, discussion, and possible adoption of resolution number 237 commending Community Services Director Armando Ornelas for his many years of service with the city of Sparks. No, I'm going to let you read it, Mr. Rundles. You've been here longer. Mr. Ornelas, good evening, and how are you?
Good evening, Chair Kramer. I'm well, thank you. Hope all of you are well also.
Thank you, Chair. A resolution number 237 introduced by the Sparks Planning Commission. A resolution recognizing the contributions of Armando Ornelas. Whereas Armando Ornelas began his career with the city of Sparks on October 19th, 1999 and served until March 24th, 2023. And whereas Armando Ornelas served as Grants Administrator, Advanced Planning Manager, Redevelopment Manager, City Planner, Assistant Community Services Director, and Community Service Director. And whereas Armando Ornelas represented Sparks on several Truckee Meadows Regional Plan updates. And whereas Armando Ornelas has unselfishly committed his time and knowledge to making significant contributions to planning and redevelopment in the city of Sparks during his tenure as a member of the Sparks staff. And whereas Armando Ornelas has attended hundreds of public hearings, workshops, and study sessions during his tenure at the city of Sparks. And whereas Armando Ornelas participated in the Sparks Comprehensive Plan overhaul of the zoning code and was instrumental in the development of Victorian Square, the Sparks Marina, and the Northern Sparks Sphere of Influence. And whereas Armando Ornelas was always available as a mentor, sharing his experience and knowledge. And whereas Armando Ornelas approached each staff member as an equal with compassion and genuinely promoted candor. And whereas the Sparks Planning Commission recognizes Armando Ornelas' dedication to the city of Sparks. Now therefore it be resolved that the Sparks Planning Commission acknowledges and sincerely appreciates the invaluable contributions that Armando Ornelas has made to the city of Sparks during his tenure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, members of the Planning Commission. It's been a privilege to work with all of you, the current members of the Planning Commission, and of course, several previous Planning Commissions and their membership. And so I've enjoyed that over the years. I've also, of course, been very fortunate to have great colleagues. And so you have the staff that are here on a regular basis, and some that aren't here, that are here more infrequently. They're tremendous professionals in their own right, and it makes my job a lot easier when I have colleagues like this. I want to recognize Janelle Thomas in particular. She's going to be leaving us as well, and she's been a terrific contributor. And then there's the cookies too. So. So at any rate, there's many people that I've worked with over the years, and everything that happens here at the City of Sparks is a team effort. But I'm glad to have been a part of all that occurred. Mr. Rundle has done a nice job of mentioning some of the things. Thank you, Jim. And with that, I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Can I get a motion, please?
Madam Chair, I move to adopt resolution number 237, a resolution commending Armando Ornelas for his many years of service with the City of Sparks.
Second.
I'd like to second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Andriola, second by Commissioner Nieberline. Discussion, comments?
Yes, I have a comment.
Go ahead, Commissioner West.
Yes, it's been a pleasure working with you as well, Armando. Thank you for all that you've done and how you've kind of helped me along as I've been on the Plan Commission for a couple years, and the input you've provided and helping me guide me through that has been very helpful. So thank you.
I'd like to make a comment. I've lived in the city of Sparks since 1979, and I was an employee of the city from 1988 to 2015. I remember the old B Street, all the old stuff, and seeing the fruits of your labors and the labors of the other people here at the City of Sparks over those years, creating Victorian Square, taking the blight out of downtown, you can walk away knowing that your victories far outnumber your defeats, and that you did make a positive impact in the quality of life for the people of Sparks, and I thank you for that.
How do you follow that? I'll echo all of comments. No, seriously, you've done a great job. It's been wonderful working with you, and I wish you the very best. I hope you get to, I told you this the other day, I hope you get to smell the roses. I too have seen pictures. I think they're there. So I hope you get to actually move from a picture and actually really have a great time and, enjoy yourself.
I would like to echo everybody's comments. Thank you so much, Armando, for your service to the city. Your fingerprints are all over everything. For those of us that know you, we know that your dedication to the city has been steadfast. And I thank you. I moved here in '91, right after my son was born, and never considered living anywhere else because of the community that we live in. It is community, and there is a reason that I live here. So thank you for all that you've done for the city. We appreciate you, and I thank you personally. Thank you.
You're welcome.
With all of that said, can I get a vote? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you so much, Armando. Now it's picture time.
Okay.
Before we get into anything else, gotta have photo op before we're done,
Okay.
because that way nobody will leave before the picture's taken.
That's funny.
Who's taking the picture?
I don't know.
Who's got the picture? Casey. Woo!
Where are we going?
Move the chairs, because Jim will be looking over a chair. Not.
Jim, you scared me. That was facing me.
What's that?
The camera was facing me. It got a little scary for a second. It's a little too close and personal.
Did you snap it?
Yeah. Jim, you don't want to get in there?
No, mine, why didn't you let her? I was gonna say that. No, really?
Come on, Brandon.
Yeah, Jensen, come on,
Get the whole crew.
Okay, thank you.
thanks, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Okay, moving on. Item 9, announcements, presentations, recognition items, and items of special interest. Do we have any tonight? Doesn't look like it, okay. We are down to our last public comment. I will open public comment. Those wishing to address the planning commission shall provide the board clerk with a written request to speak, and when called shall approach the podium, give his or her name, and will be limited to 3 minutes. Anybody here wishing to make public comment? Okay, I don't see anybody. Public comment is closed. Staff announcements and comments.
Chair Kramer, would you entertain Janelle Thomas coming up to speak for just a minute?
Absolutely.
Hello. I just, ow, that was my knee. Janelle Thomas for the record. I just wanted to thank you all for the last 4 years. I am headed to Washoe County. Yay! And my last day is tomorrow. So, thank you.
Can
Janelle.
you entertain a motion that the cookies still have?
I do take delivery requests. Yeah,
Well,
just
it's not
text
an
me.
agendized
Yeah.
item, but I'll put it somewhere in the comments and announcements.
I'll allow it.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought you might.
I do take delivery requests, so you just have to give me enough time. You know, if you give me 24 hours notice and what cookie flavor you're looking for, I will deliver.
Oh, bonus.
Thank you.
Janelle, good luck.
Thank you.
Commissioner comments, announcements? Anyone? Well, I have a comment. I would just like to, again, thank Armando and Janelle for all the hard work that you guys have done. It has been a pleasure to work with both of you, and I truly appreciate your steadfastness with the city and all that you do. So congratulations and Godspeed to wherever it is you land and whatever it is you're doing. I wish you all the best.
It's been a sweet ride.
It has. Any other comments? All right, we are adjourned.
Thank you.